starting with the absolute tallest building in the world. At number 1, the Burj Khalifa. Completed in 2010. Not an old building, but mature for this list. Not only is the Burj the tallest building in the world, it's so tall it dwarfs all the others we're featuring at 838 meters or 2,717 feet. That's more than half a mile straight up. Well, mostly straight. You notice it's built in an unusual shape. The Y-shaped floor plan gives everyone a great view of the Persian Gulf. And the shape also gives the tower more stability in high winds. But even so, it can sway up to 2 meters or more than 6 feet. Up at the top of the 163rd floor, that's right, 163 floors. Oh, and one more thing, the Burj Khalifa is so tall, you can watch the sun set at the base, hop in one of its fast elevators, and get to the top in about 2 minutes, with about a minute to spare before the sun sets again, for those lucky enough to be half a mile up on the world's tallest building. Next, number 2, the Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And this is not the only building that amazing city has on this list either. The name Merdeka means independence in Malay. The spire of the building was completed last year at a height of 678.9 meters or 2,227 feet. Now, as you would expect with the number 118 in its name, there are 118 floors with 5 parking decks below ground. But check this out. The observation deck elevator clinging to the outside of the building is glass paneled for breathtaking and unbelievable views as the car heads up to level 115. Man, that is tall. Our third tallest building in the world is the Shanghai Tower at 128 floors, completed in 2015. Now hang on, this is 154 feet shorter than the Merdeka 118, but it has 10 more floors. This is an amazing technological feat, 632 meters or 2,073 feet tall. The Shanghai Tower also has the fastest elevators in the world. I hear they go about 40 miles an hour. It is physically possible for an elevator to go faster, but they don't recommend it for a couple of reasons. First off, it could be dangerous if something went wrong, but elevators these days have multiple safety systems, so they should be okay there. The real reason is passenger comfort. The faster you go up or down, the more likely your ears are to pop, and inertia can be really uncomfortable. So about 40 miles an hour is the top speed so far. Oh, by the way, that's the speed for going up. They descend at a more leisurely 22 miles an hour. Oh, and one more amazing fact about the Shanghai Tower, each elevator has a built-in converter that regenerates electricity, saving 30% of the power, which can really add up. These are the very tallest buildings in the world on Get Details. Be sure to click like and subscribe. Now at number 4 is a really unusual structure, the Towers of the Clock in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. This is a huge complex of 7 skyscraper hotels owned by the government. There are several thousand hotel rooms, which can accommodate more than 4 million visitors a year. There's a really unique museum at the top that shows how time was kept through history and lots of other interesting scientific things too. The clock itself is the tallest and largest clock face in the world. It's about 150 feet across. They tell me that's 35 times larger than Big Ben. Also, the builders of the clock had hoped the world would abandon Greenwich Mean Time and switch to Mecca time, which is just kind of fun to say, Mecca time. Now at number 5, the second tallest building in China is the Ping An Finance Center in Shenzhen. It has the tallest observation deck of any building at 1,844 feet. There were a few hiccups, though, before the building topped out in 2015. They stopped construction to make sure the right kind of sand was being used. The worry was sea sand, which is cheap and abundant, was used instead of the proper kind. The problem is with the sea salt. The sand absolutely must be clean, or it'll corrode the steel structure. The Ping An has also been a favorite target for roof topping, where intrepid daredevils climb the building. They've come from a lot of different places, including Malaysia, Russia, and Ukraine. Honestly, that's a good way to see the inside of the Shenzhen jail. So we're seeing this list grow, and as we knew up front, China is dominating. But what qualifies as a skyscraper? Generally, it's any building over 150 meters or about 500 feet. It used to be any building 10 or 20 stories, but as the years have passed, that number is now at least 50 floors to be considered tall. That means China has more than 3,000 skyscrapers 150 meters or taller, and that dwarfs the rest of the countries on this list. Also on the list at number 2 is the U.S., with about a third of that number. Rounding out the top 10 countries, we see the UAE has really come on strong at number 3, with over 300 buildings mostly built in the last 20 years. And here's the rest of the list. A couple of surprises, including the fact that traditional adversaries, South Korea and Japan, are tied with about 270 high-rises each. Now, moving on down the list, we're at number 6. The Lotte World Tower in Seoul, South Korea. It's number 1 in Korea and incidentally taller than any building in Japan. The tallest high-rise in Japan is about 68 floors, or a little over 1,000 feet. But now back to the Lotte World Tower. The interesting thing, besides its humongous size, is the tower is not only for offices, it's also a magnet for recreation in Seoul. It has an artificial island in an indoor park called Magic Island, with 17 different rides plus an ice skating rink and underland adventures, a museum, and an aquarium. It's also wind resistant and built to withstand up to a 9.0 earthquake, which is a great idea for any structure, but especially the 6th tallest in the world. We've been up in the clouds for a while now, and the air is a little thinner up there. Let's move on down about 43 feet to the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, in North America and the U.S., and the 7th tallest in the world. It's One World Trade Center in New York City, completed in 2014. It's 408 feet taller than the original Twin Towers that were destroyed in 2001. The height is symbolic at 1,776 feet, but there's significantly less floor space than the original towers. There are 96 floors above ground, 5 decks below. It's a city within a city, with restaurants, retail, and lots of offices. It has really fast elevators that can take you to the top in about a minute. Plus, it's a green building. It collects rainwater for the plants on the plaza, to give water to the fountain, and to help cool the building. And it's a cool design, too. Now, speaking of elevators, which are essential for high-rises, the CDC says more than 17,000 people are injured every year in elevator accidents. This is the U.S. only. Worldwide would be a lot higher. The odds of getting stuck in an elevator are not really all that high, though. Only about 1 in every 100,000 elevator rides. But you have no way of knowing how many people have ridden before you. And how long is the longest anyone's ever been trapped in an office building elevator? Back in October 1999, Nick White was stuck in a lift at the McGraw-Hill building in New York City for 41 hours. That's almost 2 whole days. This is Get Details, where you can find out cool things like which building is the world's 8th tallest. It's the Gwangju CTF Finance Center in Gwangju, completed in 2016. This ginormous building has 111 floors. It seems Chinese buildings have shorter floors but taller buildings. The CTF Finance Center has a height of 530 meters or 1,729 feet. Notice how tall and straight it stands. Instead of tapering like a lot of high-rises, the tower steps back at 4 angled points and creates special sky terraces and amazing skylights. The building is mixed use with retail, residential, and office space. It's the 5th tallest in Asia, 3rd tallest in China, and number 1 in Gwangju. These vertical cities have been in development for over 120 years. As building technologies and customers with enough money to afford them have come along, high-rises have distinct periods of growth, like in the 1930s, the late 1960s and 70s, and then again in the first 2 decades of the 21st century. All the buildings on this list were erected since 2010, and there's some amazing new structures still under construction, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. But first, let's examine the 9th tallest building on Earth. We don't have to go far from number 8. It's a virtual tie as far as height goes. Number 9 is the Tianjin CTF Finance Center in Tianjin. Nearly the same height as its sister in Gwangju, but with 97 floors. That's 14 less than the one in Gwangju. It's a very tall structure, but it will be overtaken by another building that's under construction in Tianjin, the Golden Finance 117. And that brings up a good question. How long will any of these buildings stay on the top 10 of the world's tallest buildings? There are several newer extra-tall high-rises under construction right now, including the Burj Bugatti in Dubai, 595 meters or 1,952 feet. Also in Dubai, the Six Senses Residences, 125 floors, 1,695 feet. Now let's wrap up the top 10 tallest buildings on planet Earth at lofty number 10. Yep, we're still in China. As you can see, half of the top 10 buildings are there. This one is a CITIC Tower built by China International Trust and Investment. But the local nickname in Beijing is China Zun. A zun was an ancient vessel that held wine, and the building does kind of resemble one. It's the tallest building in the Chinese capital, fourth tallest in China. It's also the tallest building in the world with a helipad. Now that's the high life. And that's our list of the top 10 tallest buildings on the planet. Hey, thanks for watching. And check out our other interesting topics on Get Details, made for humans by humans.